What's up, everyone? Good morning, happy Monday. Good afternoon to Jay from Mohawk Miniatures. We're live. We're talking about another Hangout and Hobby where Jay, the wonderful patient saint that he is here to lavish on me all the skills I need to beat him in a paint contest. Eventually.
I was with you till the end, and then
I know. Maybe
the student has become the master.
Oh no,
Right?
only because of your teaching, master. So we're here. We're live. Jay is helping me paint a Space Marine, and by golly, will this be the prettiest Space Marine I own at some point soon? Maybe once he has a face.
I'm sure it won't be the only nice-looking Space Marine you own. You know,
No,
for now, sure, but
for now,
given time, there'll be many
nice pretty Space Marines. Well, you know, it's a new edition, some coming soon, which means GW has to release new interdictors and interceptors, and you know, so I'm gonna have a lot of Space Marines to paint soon. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I guess the point where you only need to learn one word for your Space Marine army because it all sounds so similar that you can just gesture and say the word, and people will assume what you mean.
I'm just gonna point to the table and say,
conversation.
I'm gonna shoot you with my mumblers, my integrators. Yeah,
my
exactly.
integrators. They're really good at like coming together and getting the job
Absolutely, done. Integrators assemble. Let's go. All right, how you doing, Jay?
I'm good. Am I slightly off screen here? Got a big white bar on YouTube.
You know, you shouldn't. So let me see if I can fix that. That's definitely on my end.
But otherwise, yes, I'm good. I've literally just speed run assembly for Dutch Tabletop Terrain MDF Terrain, which is here behind me, drying. Managed to get all of that assembled in an hour, including trimming off all the little sprue joints. So we'll call that a win. Hoping to be able to use that later on this evening to play a game of 40k. Ooh, a rare non-tournament game.
Rare non-tournament game. Good for you.
We're still going to use the Noble Demons, and it's going to be absolutely terrible, but slightly different list.
I've nothing but faith in those beautiful demons of yours. I mean, you know, someone has to make Nurgle demons work. Someone has to do it.
Well, you know how it goes, John. You get a new codex, and all the old stuff is better than it was if it was bad, and all the old stuff that was good is now slightly worse than it was if it was good. So you end up with like the old switcheroo, right? I'm just playing 10th early, is all I'm saying here. I've got a terrible trash tier list out of the codex, ready to be elevated. That's the way it's going to be.
Man, I wish I was playing it 10th edition right now. All right, let me... There you go. Remove that white bar that you didn't actually need.
Cool beans.
There we go.
Anyway, all right. Today, we're going to be painting faces.
Yes. This is quite a challenge for me. I'm very much a helmet painter. Like, given the opportunity between painting something the same color as the armor and something very hard, I choose a helmet every time. And I pretend I'm one of those, like, oh yeah, why would I not have a helmet on in battle? Honestly, faces look better. I just know that I'm better off painting the helmet. But I pretend to be a helmet supremacist to hide that.
I do paint faces, and I do a reasonable job of it, I think. But I am definitely, like, if you're going into battle, put your helmet on. I am definitely one of those. Doesn't matter who they are. Bobby G, helmet on. The Lion, helmet on. I don't care if you can take a bolt gun round to the head. Let's not chance it. So I'm all about the helmeted heads. However, we're going to paint faces today. And what John doesn't know is that I've given him a load of flesh-coloured paints to go and get so we can paint skin tones. We're going to paint, like, Caucasian skin tone. But instead, what we're going to paint is Boba the Clown. So you just need a white paint and some red for the nose and the cheeks, and I think we're done. I think that's a good finished Marine.
I've got some Evil Sun Scarlet. I know you're fond of it.
we could do what's it? Pennywise. There we are.
This is going to be great. I'm really excited for the absolute madness I'm going to be feeling like halfway through this video. And by the end of it, I know Jay's going to be like, and now do a yellow wash and the whole thing is suddenly skin tone. But until that point, I'm just going to be like, trust the process.
There is, at least with painting faces, there's a little bit more certainty at the start that the process is the right process. Because you're starting with skin-ish coloured paints, right?
Yep.
But then we're gonna deviate dramatically from what you believe is the process by slathering blue, purple, and possibly red all over the mini.
I'm so
I
excited to
just thought
find
I'd get
out.
you ready for that before you're like, it was looking fine, and now it looks like a 4-year-old's drawn this. I don't know what's going on.
All right, let's do it.
We will kick off with some Bugman's Glow. It's a good base paint for flesh. And anytime I mention flesh here, we're talking Caucasian skin tones.
Mm-hmm.
Where is he? This is Simon Phoenix, quite obviously. Those of you that have seen Demolition Man.
Yep.
I've done a guide on how to paint a darker skin tone. And it's something I want to learn how to do more of. I want to be able to paint like Hispanic skin tones, Asian skin tones, Indian skin tones, because I want some more variety in my models. But for today, because it's easy to relate to someone that has the same skin tone as the model that they're painting, so they can kind of see what's going on, we're just going to stick with a Caucasian skin tone.
Okay.
So Bugman's Glow is that kind of a little bit too pink, ruddy kind of color. It's a decent base coat over black. You're probably going to need 2 coats of paint, so thin it a little bit more than you would normally do. Apply it; it will dry nice and quick, and then we can get on with the next bits.
Sounds
but
good.
It is a useful skin tone for creating warmer skin tones. If you're going to paint, say, a Space Wolf and you wanted him out in the cold and so on, you wanted to create a cooler skin tone, I wouldn't start with this. I'd start with Cadian Flesh Tone. But for a regular boy,
okay,
nice warm skin tones, this is fine.
I'm excited for it. It's fun because Jay and I happen to both be 2 quite pale people.
I make Casper look tanned.
Yeah, purely unrelated to our professions, of course. We just kind of happen to both be pale people. Trust me, I was pale long before I learned what Warhammer was. But it's funny because every time I see like flesh tone paints, I look at that thing and I like hold it and I look at it in my hand and I'm like, nah, it's not flesh tone. Like, no way.
This is way too tan.
This is way too pink. All right, there we go. Yeah, no joke though. I have been literally on the helmets or on the like speed paint contrast for every bit of skin I have ever painted. And
every bit of skin you've ever painted.
Literally every single one. Like I just didn't paint skin because I was a Tyranid player. So I should say human. I should emphasize human here. But when I was because I like contrast came out before I got my like another army, really, like before I actually played in human armies.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, because I was all Tyranids all the time for the vast majority of my or at least for the first like 8 years or so of me playing Warhammer. But I'm excited for this because I've gotten into a lot of Imperium armies, and I do really want to get better at this, as well as once I've relatively mastered flesh tone, I want to then master different skin tones, because I think that armies like especially like Adeptus Sororitas or Imperial Guard, where you can be very easily drawn from different populations, even
Absolutely.
When you like follow kind of like the sci-fi trope that every part of a planet's identical, because like I was like in Star Wars, like Tatooine is all deserts instead of being some deserts, some forests, some oceans, some trees, whatever, where like all the people look the same as well. But like I could totally see a Guard army or a Sisters army, even a Space Marine army. Just everyone looks a little bit different because that's actually how people work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good having that variety as well, just from an aesthetic perspective of your army. Like, if everyone looks identical, it's very easy to miss some more detailed, oriented bits of the paint job. So by creating variation across a theme, and you keep the uniform the same because that's manufactured, but anything organic should all be different. Mm-hmm. Like it's a really, really cool thing. So I want to learn with my 8 bags. Everyone's got lots of exposed skin. Like I said, varying different skin tones. We've got a decent recipe for dark skin tones. We've got a couple of different recipes for essentially like pale white dude.
Mm-hmm. Who, me?
I gestured to all of me at that stage. So, I'm going to a team tournament at the end of this month, and I'm not entirely certain I can tell this joke on YouTube, but I think it's okay, which is why I will. It's a bunch of us that are all in our, I'm going to say, very late 30s to early 40s. that have all got grey at least in our hair, if we have hair left. So some, I think, less so. We're all a little overweight. We all play Warhammer. We're all the pasty white boys, and so we decided default setting might be an interesting team.
That would be pretty funny. It's very fun walking like a group of Warhammer players into another place after a Warhammer tournament. Like, you ever have like that moment when like the rest of the the Chipotle looks around and realizes that just like a swarm of guys wearing weird esports jerseys have all walked into the place. The mothers like start like holding their children a little bit tighter. It's like, oh yeah, okay. Like, what is going on here?
So I normally get the comments of, Dad, look at that man's hair. It's like, not now, son, not now. Okay.
That's true. You
it's all right.
You've got the distinctive mohawk.
So, a couple of coats of Bugman's down. You should start to get a decent foundation. It is very important to get that solid foundation, because obviously without it, everything else starts to fail. Like as we move on, because this is a very strong detail on the face. We do need to make sure it's good, kind of right from the get-go. Now, the next thing you do when you paint your faces, John, is what? What do you reckon?
Put the contrast on. It's a two-step process, Jay.
No, now we're going for that face paint look. We'll do the clown.
Oh, okay. We're doing the clown.
So actually, no. The next thing we're gonna do is paint in loads of different colors. So we start off with pink because if you look at me, as much as I am close to alabaster, as you might think, there is lots of different colors on my face. We can split the face up into 3 bands, effectively. Anything from like the cheekbones and just below those to down, you can put a lot of blue into the face. For a lot of people, that could be like veins showing through your skin. If you're a dude, it could be stubble. Yeah, obviously my stubble grew a bit long. So we have blue here across the middle, like top of your cheeks up to your eyes, maybe not quite the forehead. There can be a lot of red. So think about the darker shadows that you have around your nose, the thinner skin, the fact that there is more capillaries and so on near the surface, especially your cheeks. You can have more red tones to your skin there. And then normally the forehead is influenced greatly by the ambient light around you. Now, I look super pale because I've got a very cool white light on me. It's like a 5,500 Kelvin light. If I change that to a warm white light, I'd look a bit more yellow, which is why it's not that, because I'd look like an extra from The Simpsons. That's not good. So we're going to use blue, purple, red, and yellow on our face now to create an element of those colors coming in. The yellow is going to be this guy outside in the sunshine. The blue we're going to use to create that kind of depth to the face, have some of the stubble coming through. We'll be glazing this over a bit at the end as well, but it helps to get a bit of a mother color to it now, essentially. Okay. So for that, I've got Gravedigger Denim from P3, which is a nice sort of blue-grey. It's a little bit more blue than the Fang, which is like slightly more grey and cooler. For my red and purple, I've got Beaten Purple from P3 and Cador Red Base from P3. This is kind of Evil Sun's Scarlet-ish. This one, I mean, GW don't make a good purple, aside from Nagaroth Night, and this is a brighter version of that. And then for the yellow, we've got some Seraphim Sepia, which is a great wash that GW make. This is absolutely fantastic stuff.
I've got mine ready.
And we're using that to paint the forehead. So go ahead and prep your palette with some of these colours on there, John. You won't need a lot of each because we're going to turn them into glazes and things later on. You'll need a little, though, to get everything done.
Sounds great to me.
Now, the purple, we're actually going to put in the eyes. And what we don't want is the end look of our Space Marine is wearing not mascara.
Eyeshadow,
that's it, yes.
There you
go. We don't want that. Okay? If you're painting, I don't know, fantasy miniatures or maybe an Inquisitor.
Yeah, maybe like a little rogue
she
trader.
Looks like the kind of lady that would have some makeup on.
I feel like there's a lot of Necromunda models. A lot of Necromunda models would like that, I think.
Yeah. Think about your House Escher gangers for definite. Like, get the big bright blues and pinks and so on going on there. That would look sick.
I'm going to do a Tribal Space Marine chapter now just to give them all eyeshadow.
I think you definitely should. 100%.
Hey, Emperor Spear's a little tribal. All right.
You know what? You could, and you could definitely do war paint. That requires quite a lot of work. I've seen a lot of people try and do like the God of War thing with the red.
I think this one I'm content to paint it normal, but just out of curiosity, if you were painting war paint, would you factor that into the face, or would you paint a face normal and then go add war paint?
So I'd paint a face normally and then add the war paint.
Okay.
And then, in the same way as painting like tattoos on stuff, there's an extra step, which is to glaze skin tones over it. Because if you just paint the war paint on, it looks too fresh.
Yep.
Like if people paint a tattoo, let's say they get some Inky by Dark, which is a great color for tattoos, on essentially humanoid skin at least, and you paint that all on, it looks like a really, really fresh tattoo. And if you take some skin tones and just glaze over it, it takes it from being super fresh to something that's been there for a while and gives it more of a realistic, like natural effect, effectively. So here's kind of the consistency we're working with. It's a little blurred because it's distance away from the camera, but here you go. Taking some of our blue and thinned it down a little bit to quite a thick glaze. This is way thinner than you want your base coats, but a lot thicker than you want your glazes. I'm going to paint this into everything from sort of this line on his face down. So imagine a line going from the ear to the corner of his mouth.
Okay.
Actually, no, do it to his nose, like corner of his nose, because you want the mustache line and stuff as well.
Okay.
So on my dude, that's reasonably simple to do. And we're not looking to paint everything in a really solid version of this color. This is just going to exist in the recesses. So we're doing this now so we can highlight around it, and it will give us a lot of the effect without being like, all-consuming. And then at the end of the process, we can fine-tune it if we want to, adding more stubble effects. On my dude, for instance, he's got a mohawk, because
I chose the same, actually. I chose the same. I figured as
we could do stubble around the head as well. That works too.
All right.
And then the next thing we're going to do is do a red band. So give this a second to dry, obviously. And the red band will help to like flush out his cheeks a little bit. It will be like some of the area around your nose, like normally like just here, your nose meets the rest of your face, it gets a little bit redder. And that's kind of what we're trying to simulate with that.
Okay.
Lord Adam, I used for my Space Marines armor mostly P3 paint, but there was one Citadel paint which was Lothern blue we used for the main highlights, the brightest blues.
Yep, and we've been painting this Space Marine all on stream, so if you wanted to go back and watch Lord Adam, some of the first Hangout and Hobbies that we did, and I probably actually need to go back and retitle them all, were the blue. So I think the first two Hangout and Hobbies that I did with Jay were all about getting that blue armor done. So if you want to see his expert teaching, you should go check that out, or just go check out his channel. It's Mohawk Miniatures on YouTube and Twitch.
That's the one. It's all been wet blended as well, so it's not none of this has had an airbrush even close to it. It's all done with brushwork, and the armor. I don't know how long we actually spent painting, to be honest, John.
There might have been a little bit of shenanigans. There might have been a little shenanigans in there. Not too much though. You know, I would really never be that kind of guy.
Well, I'm just thinking. There's lots of explanation of what wet blending was. And then a few like I paint and you paint kind of bits. So in terms of actual work,
I would be
surprised. You could easily replicate it in an hour and 3/4 now, and then the next one would be like an hour and a half, and then down to about 45 minutes if you really gave it one.
Yeah, that's almost certainly true. As soon as that Leviathan box is on sale, I will put that to the test, because I'm gonna have a lot to do.
Yes, do it. Get some full-on speed painted, wet blended Marines, man.
Yep. Okay, so I'm adding the red bands now. Yeah. Kind of around the nose. Really getting my Pagliacci on here.
Getting your what, sorry?
What is it? Pagliacci the clown? Did I mess that?
I have no idea.
It's like a typical clown name. Other than Jay, of course. Yeah! Got him.
Sick burn. Sick burn. Well done.
Alright, I just looked it up. Pagliacci is the Italian plural for clowns. And that is apparently why... Like, whenever... I honestly, like, Pagliacci is just like a clown joke. It's like a name you use to show that a clown is a clown. At least here it is.
I don't even know if we have an equivalent in the UK. We just kind of stay away from clowns because they're
Yeah.
But you can see, like, even on this guy, that's just what was it, Bugman's Glow, and then a bit of red and a bit of blue. He already looks a lot more human with those quick passes of color.
Yeah.
So by the time we start adding highlights to this and really making the skin tone look like a skin tone, it's gonna really become that sort of quasi-human thing. Next thing to do is the Seraphim Sepia on the top. Now make sure when you work in your brush shape, you brush towards the back of the head rather than brush towards the front, because you don't want to end up with big deposits of wash here on the skin. We're literally looking to just tint the skin to a little bit of a yellowish tint. We're not looking to turn him into Homer Simpson.
Okay.
And then the purple, where do you think that goes?
I would guess the purple goes in the eyes.
Exactly that, yeah. Like, I don't know anyone, because I don't know anyone that spends all their day relaxing and doing nothing else, that doesn't have, like, big purple under their eyes. Like,
yeah, like at least a little bit.
It's like a normal thing.
It's pretty normal, yeah.
Oh, God, downvoting people, thank you. Now I get it. I've literally heard that joke before. It's like, but the Doctor, I am the clone.
Yeah, I am. Okay. I didn't even want to say, because Jay and I were, like, talking about Watchmen a little bit before the before the show started, and I didn't want to out you, but I was about to say wasn't that in like Watchmen?
It was a Rorschach's joke, right?
Yeah, it was Rorschach's joke. Ha ha, very funny. Everyone laughs.
Yeah. I didn't realize there was a TV series of that. I'm gonna have to go and find that now. It's got to be on Prime or Disney or something, right?
I think it's on either Prime or HBO. Might be on HBO. Okay. Yep. Kalaris in the chat is also changing perspective on Next Marines. Yeah, you know, I want to be the helmet enthusiast, but what I can really get behind, honestly, is like an HQ who's holding a helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And like, because that kind of gives the not on the front lines vibe. Like, he clearly has the helmet available. He's just decided that this isn't a time where he needs it. Which, you know, I get that. I'm sure someone, you know, I'm sure in active combat you're supposed to have your helmet on all the time. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to go rule of cool. Also, when I finally figure this out, I want people to know that I know how to paint faces. Which means I'm going to have to do an entire new guard army. Because my current guard army is gas masks for a reason. It's because Jay hadn't taught me yet. Alright.
Well, I quite like the gas mask look. And I imagine for guard as well.
It's a good
fact
look.
That if you don't follow orders, you might just get shot.
Yeah. Right.
I can understand why that one's more heavily enforced than some walking tank of a space marine going like, well, listen.
Yeah, like, who's going to shoot the space marine? You kidding me? Chaplin's going to try?
There. Because let's be fair, this guy looks fabulous.
Oh, he does.
And some, like, early 2000s, but, you know. But, yes. He's got a helmet attached to his back, his belt. This is clearly the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my guy's doing the same thing. He's charging into battle with his helmet, like, on his hip. That doesn't make sense.
I can understand it if you've run out of close combat weapons and you've taken your helmet off to give somebody a bit of a thumping with it. Like, that one I'm fully behind.
Yeah. I also like the broken helmet look. Where, like, I've, like...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, you can, like, take a spare helmet, cut it up a little bit, put it on the base, and be like, yeah, the helmet did save his life. However, that only works once.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. There's ways to make it work. You know, Jay likes to add a little bit of character to all his miniatures. I can try to follow suit.
I do indeed. It just makes things...
Makes it more fun.
Feel a bit more cool, you know? They look cool, and they can feel cool too. Okay, so we've added purple, we've added the red, the blue, the yellow.
Okay.
The next step, and I'm really sorry to do this to you, John, I was going to save this as a surprise, but the next step is, in fact, painting their eyes.
Here we go.
Right, it's important. You've got to do it. If you don't
I'm
have a
ready.
helmet, you have to paint the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a really important tip. Never use white paint to paint eyes.
Okay.
Because otherwise you get Christopher Walken, and next thing you know, your Marine's all talking like this, and that's not a good look. So I'm using Sickly Skin, which is actually what I'm going to be using for the highlight build-up on the skin tone after we get past the Cadian flesh tone layer.
Mm-hmm.
You can use anything that's kind of similar, like light bone colors and things like that, but white is a bit too much. It's important you have a brush with a very fine point for this. Now, I still use a size 1 from Winsor & Newton because despite the fact the brush is very large, the tip is absolutely perfectly sharp, as you can see. Big tips here for getting the eyes done right, for the white part at least.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure your paint is the right consistency. You need this to be reasonably opaque with one pass. Otherwise, you start going like again and again and again, and suddenly the eyes get bigger and longer and wider and so on.
Yeah.
Also, don't be afraid of turning the model upside down and going from both sides of the eye. Okay?
Okay.
You need to paint that eye shape, not a circle. So you might need to.
Okay.
And you were going to say something, but I spoke over you. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just making jokes.
Well, now I really want to hear it.
I was just, like, oh yeah, like that Marine's seen some stuff.
That Marine has definitely seen some stuff. So this is the kind of consistency I'm looking for. As you can see, we can get really thin lines, very fine brush control,
mm-hmm.
but fairly opaque.
Okay. Let's try it on the thumbnail. I do love how every Monday my thumb is just painted over.
Of color.
There we go. Okay, yeah, reasonably thin.
It's really useful because your body heat just dries the paint pretty much straight away.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just check the consistency really quickly. Other tips for painting eyes, and this is definitely one. I like to assume the position. So I end up moving my chair backwards with my forearms on the desk just to make sure it's in camera shot. But you do whatever you need to do to get a nice stable position. Remember, this guy has sculpted eyelids and so on. You don't want to paint those bits. You don't want to get paint on his eyebrow either.
Okay. But
just paint the white of their eyes. Now, I've got some on this guy's eyebrow. As you can see, if we turn him underneath, he looks like he's venom. This is not ideal. But this is why we do this now before doing all the highlights. Because once you've done the highlights, if you get paint from like eyes or whatever else on them, it's a lot more work to fix, whereas you're going to be extremely careful painting around the eyes because of the amount of work you've put into painting this guy's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Now the real trick for painting eyes is to let the mini paint them itself.
Okay, I will sit here and wait for it to do that.
I have painted Abaddon twice. Neither time have I painted his eyes at all. And we've done it on stream both times, and the stream has seen that they have not been painted. Someone's even gone back and like analyzed the VOD
mm-hmm.
to be sure that I haven't painted the eyes. Both times his eyes have in fact ended up painted. The first one was yellow with a black pupil, and I have no idea how the hell that happened. I wish I was making this up because it freaked me the fuck out. The second time,
the pupil's impressive,
and I think that was probably me, which has been an errant brush stroke. It just happened to be in exactly the right place. But anyway, we now have a Batman-like figure because he just has the white eyes.
Indeed, we do.
Next job is the pupils.
Okay.
I still use blacks or browns for my pupils. I think the blue eyes tend to be a little bit
Off-putting?
off. They're just not quite where they should be. When you're painting the pupil of the eye, we're going to paint both the pupil and the iris at the same time with the same color. I know artists that can turn this into an actual eye with even like a little glint of white and stuff. That's way beyond me. Importantly, if you look into my eyes, you will see that there is a white dot, or at least a slightly bloodshot cream dot, either side of that, and that my cornea and so on, iris, hits both the top and bottom of my eye. So you need an eyeball, like the pupil, to fit top to bottom, and not quite left to right. You've got to have those white dots either side.
Okay.
I've got some brown on the palette that's I think it's Rhine Oxide actually from earlier on. So I'm going to use that.
I've got a nice oak brown I'm going to use here.
Great.
All right, and this is just the part where we just hold our breath and go?
I do literally hold my breath. And I find it's always easier to slightly stipple on the eyeball part rather than try and paint it in a line. So this guy's clearly still seeing some shit, so we need to get rid of the white that went a little bit awry earlier on, but that's kind of what we're looking at. And then widen that a little at the top.
Yep, doing a slight stipple here. Okay, I have successfully left white on either side of the brown. I'm happy about that.
Excellent. This is all about getting that right paint consistency as well. If the paint is right, don't forget, make sure you keep washing your brush to stop paint drying on the edge of the tip of the brush and so on.
Maybe
if the paint consistency is right, it is much easier to do.
Maybe I'll just only use the heads that have servo eyes in them, so I have to do this half as often. You know what I mean, like the bionic eyes?
So your army has got bionic eyes?
Everyone's got a bionic eye on both eyes. But I painted the flesh.
Excellent.
I'm just kidding. But actually, though, the first character model that I'm going to be doing with painting skin is actually a Yarrick for my guard army. So I'm going to have to paint at least one eye on that.
So I'm thinking you start with like a tombstone look, maybe a mausoleum for a decorative base, and call it done, right?
Yeah, he's actually riding a horse.
I've got somebody that wants me to do a commission of that. You might know him. It's one of the US events team, Gabriel.
Oh, yeah.
Wants me to do Yarrick for Lord Solar. So.
I mean, it's a good look. Like I can't fault it at all.
But there we go. We have eyes. Now there's little bits of white that are slightly out of place, but otherwise you can see we've got eyes. We now have what you could call done on a face if you really wanted to. It's very dark. It looks like it's been punched in the head a few times, but certainly we've got variation of color. We have eyes, which is our main focal point in the mini. So we have now identity. The mini feels like he's got purpose and so on. Now what we need to do is paint the rest of the face.
Okay.
And for that, we can just go straight back to our Bugman's Glow. If you want, we can start the highlight process immediately and go on with mixing in some Cadian flesh. In fact, you know what? Let's do that. Let's take a little jump start on the highlights.
Love it.
So you remember before when we were doing blends, we were talking about a ratio as we go. So we'd start off with maybe 4 parts Bogren Brown to 1 part something else, and then it would be 3 to 2, and then 2 to 3 as the ratio sort of move past each other, right?
Yeah.
And that's effectively what we want to do here. And really what we're looking for is to do maybe 5 or 6 highlights on the face all told. Any more than that, it starts to get a little cramped, and they don't see too much variation. Things to remember, though, and I think this is probably people's usual mistake when they're painting any skin tone. It doesn't even need to be a face. It could be like arms, chest, whatever. Unless what you're painting is a bodybuilder that is extremely tanned, that is then oiled skin under extremely bright light, there isn't that much variation between bits of your skin that are in shadow and bits of your skin that are in the light.
Mm-hmm.
So if you again look at my face, and there's quite a lot of it, there isn't a lot of difference between this color and this color and this color and this color and so on. So what we don't want is to have like super dark shadow and then ultra bright highlight, because you look like Tron, and you probably don't look like Tron. So we're going to work through highlights. We're going to work through quite thin paint to preserve some of the colors that we've applied to our mini.
Okay.
But the majority of what's here is going to stay in the recesses. And when it comes to the red and the blue, that's fine. If it was just Bugman's Glow, by the time we reach our final highlight, there's too much difference, too much contrast between that, and your guy looks weird. So for the first highlight, we're going to take probably 1 part Cadian Flesh Tone to 4 parts Bugman's Glow. So I'm going to take from here.
And Cadian Flesh Tone is what you used as the base, right? Just because I'm working on different paints.
3. Bugman's Glow is what we used as the base.
Oh, okay.
And Cadian Flesh Tone is the lighter, like regular skin kind of color.
Got it. Okay, so 4 parts base, 1 part the lighter version.
That's right. Yeah. And that won't give us something that's hugely different. It's going to be reasonably close in. And that's kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it is hugely different, we'll start getting to a realm where we have that super high contrast look to the skin, and it just looks unnatural. And we're trying to create something that looks reasonably natural.
Yeah.
So for this highlight, keep it nice and thin. It shouldn't be a glaze, but you still want to have some of the translucency, and paint everything that isn't a recess. So on this dude, he's got this big scar up here. Okay, now for scars, I like to add a little bit of red, and that's one of the reasons why we've got some red later on.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do some really bright highlights near it to show it's like a proper scar. But otherwise, the only recesses that you should probably be leaving here on this highlight pass are the between the lips, because his mouth is closed. Some of the areas right around the chin where you want that stubble to kind of show through a bit more, because it would be thicker and denser. The hollows where the eyes are. And that's kind of it. Everything else gets painted. You could leave some of the very, very like furrowed brow bits around the eyes, but even those you can leave the next 2 or 3 highlights before you start creating that recessed look to it.
Yeah. Now, I happen to have a miniature with an open mouth. He is probably screaming for the Emperor.
Okay.
And I
So
obviously
we need
haven't...
to do some bits before we carry on then in that case.
Okay.
Take your purple and paint the inside of the mouth. The whole inside of the mouth.
So,
I know your mouth isn't purple, you open your mouth, but it's dark, it will do.
Yeah. And are you talking literally paint it purple or glaze purple over the flesh tone that it currently is?
Do a very light pass of purple, and what that will do is it will darken down the flesh tone quite well. So a very thick or heavy glaze.
Perfect. I can do that.
Would be fine.
Okay.
So do that, and then afterwards we'll paint the tongue. So that'll be red. The teeth we can do right at the very end.
Perfect. Okay.
Lord Adam says, I'm pretty good at painting faces, but eyes are a whole another story. You have to practice it at them all. That is, unfortunately, mate, as much as I would like to say, here's a big shortcut to painting eyes.
It's the only way.
Stippling really helps you out, but it is honestly just paint hundreds of them. That's how you get better, is painting a load of them. I've seen people do some really weird shortcuts. I had one guy that told me he cuts the end off of his brush. So he has like a chisel tip, and he just dots the white either side of the pupil. And that's the way for him. I know somebody else that does that, but with a toothpick, a wooden toothpick.
That's kind of fun.
Like, yeah, I gave that a try. I couldn't get that to work. Like, toothpick and a brush for me are too far in opposite directions.
Yeah, I have painted. I've attempted to paint eyes with a needle before.
A needle?
A needle.
Like a sewing needle?
No, like an airbrush needle that got slightly bent, and like I was no longer...
Say airbrush needle, but okay, it was slightly bent, that's fine.
No, it was an airbrush needle that I had just replaced.
Gotcha.
Like, the airbrush needle I used to paint this eye has never been back in the airbrush, I promise. But like, I didn't throw it out. I just had an extremely fine
tip.
tip.
Tried to upcycle it.
Yeah.
That should be applauded. This is good. we'll take the win there.
No, I promise I didn't then put it back in the airbrush. I could tell you were thinking it. You're like, he did not take it out, paint with it, and put it back in.
So,
Jay realizes
so
he needed to start much
eyes
lower. Well, you know, I mean, I just used the whole airbrush. You know, the needle was just sticking out the front, so just dot it in,
like
and just
forward.
absolutely, yeah, just well,
Nice.
you line it up, and then you release the nozzle, and it goes dink, dink.
You know, I've always said if brute force isn't working, you're just not using enough. So
Exactly.
I can get behind this trail of thought.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not teaching Jay.
That's the only reason. You're right.
The only reason.
That.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got the purple done on the mouth here.
Cool. Do red for the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And then the highlight for that would just be take some of the red and mix it with like a flesh tone to get that kind of pinkish bit. And if you really want, I mean, if you look at the tongue, you can then think like, well, I can do some purple glazes, especially under the underside, if you can see any of that, and so on and so on and so on. You can do a lot to make skin a lot more realistic, just very simple glaze work. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
A double header this morning. I've literally just got that pun, and that's been sat there looking at me for 2 minutes.
Oh.
I am very ashamed of myself now.
All right, we have his tongue. A little bit of red in there, okay. And then you said kind of a little bit like a mix of red and flesh tone.
Yeah, that's right, because the flesh tone's going to lighten the red. Most flesh tones are basically pink, which is red and like white or bone, something to help lighten it and desaturate a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So any of those will work.
Perfect.
Oh, Charles S., you really used your noggin for that one, didn't you?
Yeah.
Dear oh dear.
Jay's just still wrapping his head around it.
I am absolutely annoyed at myself for how long it took to... I have somebody that comes into my stream, and every single time they come in, they drop a pun that is terrible. And it's always terrible.
Good.
And
Those
so
are
we
best
used
kind.
to like, no. Trust me, some of these have made people leave the stream, all right? They are bad at times.
No, puns
They're
are
not even, like,
puns are a
good bad,
circle.
they're just bad.
Puns are a circle. If you become bad enough, you go back around to being good.
Yes, but he has done that so many times. He's developed the art of the absolutely terrible pun that nobody will like. Although I did get him back because we painted Trajan Valaris, and the guy that won the mini said, "Can you paint it as if it looks like stone?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah,
Ooh.
sure, we'll give it a go. So this is my Custodes.
Mm.
Now that's a terrible pun.
Mm.
See?
Yeah, it's.
See? John, an aficionado of puns, is there just like,
I was deciding what I was gonna say, and I was like, oh man, like a rock pun is too low. What do I go with? I stalagmite have to leave the chat myself. Like, who knows?
Ooh. Nice. You could have gone with a rock pun.
I could, rocks is easy.
I see that's Dwayne, Captain of the Imperium, or you're really rocking that color scheme.
Yeah, I could have, but I hold myself to a high standard of puns, which is good because the rest of the Art of Warehouse absolutely hates puns to a fault. Not a single person on Art of War appreciates puns, and do not think for a moment that has even slowed me down.
Really, I'm surprised by that. I'm very surprised by that. I'm also slightly disappointed. You know,
That's great.
it's true to say that never meet your heroes. Right? Okay, so I'm gonna start applying the first highlight. And I'm going to literally paint pretty much the entire face with a nice thin coat of paint. Like I said, I'm going to miss the gap in the lips. I'm going to not paint inside the eyes. But otherwise, this guy's got really, really sunken cheeks, so I might leave a little of that recess. Everything else getting painted.
Okay.
Now, it's very, very important you keep your paint thin and keep washing your paintbrush out. Because you're going to put very little paint on your paintbrush. Because you're putting very little paint on your paintbrush, you will find that the paint on it dries a little bit quicker. Because it dries a little bit quicker, it starts making the tip of your paintbrush a little bit more stiff. Phrasing. But also, it's going to stop your brush strokes being nice and fluid and smooth. It's going to create texture on the model. This is the last place you really want a lot of texture. So do keep making sure you're rinsing your paintbrush out, thin paint, little on the paintbrush at a time, work those brush strokes in.
Okay.
And this is the point where you can tidy up any of the like slightly errant paint you've used to paint the eyeballs and so on.
Of course. But
So
I've
for me,
already been
that
doing
means I
it.
could go underneath the eyebrow to tidy that up.
Nope. As predicted, I am impressed by how much the white and red, or sorry, the blue and red that I painted onto the flesh tone doesn't look garbage. You know, because I just I was like, oh, yep, sure, let's just ruin the pink by just putting blue on it. That'll work. That'll be fine. But I trusted Jay. One of these days, he's gonna make me regret that. But it is not this day.
Never, John. I would never betray that trust.
Yeah, that's
unless it was for YouTube clicks.
The clicks get him every time.
And that's another story. Art of War After Dark. We could start a new show with that one.
Ooh, one of these days. We've been lobbying for Art of War After Dark for years. We're gonna get there. Okay.
I think what you guys should do is have an in-house tournament, because that obviously goes quite well.
Mm-hmm.
But the loser has to do a show where they tell their embarrassing tournament stories and make it a forfeit-driven rather than a prize-driven thing.
Yeah, that's true. Fear of failure can be a good motivator for these in-house tournaments. It's not just who wins; it's you really don't want to lose.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how are you finding the application of this? Because obviously you're trying to go on with very thin paint. You need to be very careful, especially around the eyes and so on. You don't want to eradicate any of the red, the blue. You just need to cover up some of it. So you can see on mine, there's still plenty of that bluish paint around the chin, like the very bottom of his face.
Yeah,
so a little bit of that red, the purple showing up in the mid-tone area. The yellow, we've taken most of it out, but it's still in those recesses around the hairline and so on. That's kind of important.
Yeah, I've been trying to leave a little bit of room, a little bit of an extra chin in the on the bottom of this. This head is a little bit annoying to paint. Not to make excuses, because you know how some of the Marines have like the chin strap helmet?
Yes.
I didn't realize
is that the one you've got?
Yeah, I didn't realize that it's that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a bit of a nightmare actually.
Yeah, so I'm still leaving a little bit of chin, but there's less chin to work with, and there's no edge to his chin.
Yeah.
So
highlight the top parts of the chin, and try and leave a recess where. So where the you use my beard as a guide, but like where the chin comes in and it's sort of pushed up, then leave a recess there, basically.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing.
Let's harass Jay, says Timbera.
Hello, welcome into the chat, everyone. If anyone is watching us and having fun and maybe even painting their own stuff, let us know what you're painting. I literally always like to hear what people are painting.
I'm going to harass Tim back, though. So, John, how many hot meals have you eaten today so far?
How many hot meals?
Yeah.
I've eaten one.
Okay, that's still more games than Tim has won this year.
Oof. Oof. I could have said 0, I could have said 1. There was no way that Tim was getting out of that.
You pretty much bang on with that. Yeah. I think at one point he had more buys in events than he had actual wins. Gotcha.
Well, it seems you have quite a rapport with Tim. So I'm going to guess that Tim has been going to you for his game advice. And now is a great chance to tell Tim he should get a free trial of Warhammer with us instead.
Advice. And after seeing it had been ignored repeatedly, I stopped giving Tim game advice. I instead had a bet with a friend of mine who fancies himself as quite good at 40k. And I said to him that I bet he couldn't coach Tim to a winning record at any event. And my friend gave it a good try and gave up.
Gave it a try and gave up. That's painful.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, John, you offer coaching. You
know? I do indeed.
Let's see if I can foist Tim off onto you.
Jeez.
In fact, Tim, I would almost pay for you to have Art of War coaching. The only thing stopping me is that you would unfortunately ruin this poor man's reputation. So...
Oh man, no, I could pull it off. Nothing but confidence here.
Anyway, first pass of highlights done. We've got a face that looks
surprisingly human on this face.
Yeah. And it's mostly the eyes. It's that little bit of purple and the red in there. It makes him look much more human.
Yeah.
So now we just work through the progression. We add more of the lighter flesh tones. So it's not Cadian flesh tone. For me, it is. And I'm going to go to about a 50-50 mix of the two colours now.
Okay, sounds good. I will match
this time, we miss out some of the lower areas on the face for highlights. Now, it's going to be difficult for you. I still like doing the chin butt. All Marines have got like the strong Travolta chin. So I still like doing a little highlight on the chin butt. But otherwise, we just move up a little bit across the face and do less highlights towards the bottom and keep all the highlights towards the top. We still want to paint almost all of the surface of the face, say past the upper lip. Okay. Everything from there upwards. No problem.
Sounds good to me. All right.
Clara says, just worked on my Brutalis Dread with a guide from Muzzle Burn on the Flamers. It turned out great. Excellent. Was it my guide on Muzzle Burn for the Flamers?
I hope it was.
YouTube video about heat flare.
I've watched that one. I think.
Have you?
I'm pretty sure I've watched that one. So I looked up a couple different muzzle burn videos at different points, and I believe I watched that one before. I think before we even started talking painting.
No way. That's awesome, dude. So clearly you've got some fantastic looking muscle burn to show people. Right?
Absolutely. I think it looks pretty decent.
Good.
You know, by my standards, it's not bad. I'm not even embarrassed to show people it. But it's all on my the demon breath.
You followed somebody else's guide, right?
Yeah. No. Yours was the last one I watched. All right. Let's see here.
Don't get enough money to cover that. Lol. We both know I go to an event to have a laugh. I thought you went to an event to have the beer. Like, is this event got a bar? Yes, excellent. We're there. Tim and I both are like the same kinds of beers, so we have quite a few beer related interests, which is good.
There you go. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I don't know what European. I don't really know much about European beers or about American beers, to be fair. But you seem.
Sure, most of the Americans don't know much about beer.
There you go.
Even the people making it.
Set you up there. You seem like you like the fancy, like the hipster beers.
No, for me a hipster beer is like the IPA beers that are like, oh, I taste pineapple and guava and the hint of dew on a morning spring and stuff. Like, no, I like beer that's about as full flavored as a hammer to the face. I like stout that is like 10% plus, like really alcoholic, very dark beer.
There you go.
Did you have any of the beers from the WTC last year?
I haven't. But the asterisk that I'll put on that is that I haven't had beer. Period. I do not partake.
Gotcha.
But I was told everyone who I was traveling with assured me that Belgian beer at WTC was significantly superior to what they normally got.
Super good. Yeah. Did you know it's because Tom Adriani was the master brewer for Stella Artois, and he moved from Stella Artois to a like more boutique-y sort of Belgian brewery called Golden Carolus, which is who we got the beer from last time. And so most of the beer that people were drinking at the venue had been created by Tom.
That is that is a very fun fact. I had no idea. I didn't know.
I didn't either until last year when I was drinking this like really, really nice beer. It's a whiskey infused Belgian beer. I thought, this is fucking great. And Tom was like, "You like that one?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." And I'm like, this is my invention. I made this. And I was blown
what a
away.
flex!
Like,
what a
guy!
What a casual! It's like, oh yeah, you're at my tournament drinking my beer.
Yeah.
Good for Tom, though.
Drank a lot of that beer as well.
Okay, so I'm just about finishing up that second highlight here with the slightly lighter skin tone.
Awesome. So on a lot of the older marine sculpts, and anyone with an open mouth, and yours has probably got this, there's like the really aggressive lines in the face.
Yes, there are.
So make sure your highlights still come up those lines. My guy looks a little bit more, I won't say serene, but slightly more relaxed. Like, I'm just going to pop you one anyway. It doesn't matter. You mean nothing to me. Just bang.
Yeah, look at the cheekbones on that guy. Good gravy.
Does he look a little bit like Josh Roberts to you, though? He needs different hair, but I think
I was gonna say not the hair, but
really on the roids. I think he's kind of close.
Jeez, it's too funny. All right, let me just get one more highlight on those extremely sharp lines this man just has on his face for no reason. I mean, I know there's a reason. It's because he's a space marine.
Because he's the angry man.
This one is definitely angry. I can assuredly believe that. Here we go. Angry Space Marine, holding him upside down so that I can kind of get the right angle.
Angry Marines.
We should, yeah. I have I feel like the stereotype with angry Marines, because they're such a meme online, is that they're always like poorly painted. I would really love to see someone just like submit just a beautiful angry Marine army.
I think if I was to paint an angry Marine, I'd have to do it for Golden Demon.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like just go
a fully non-metallic metal power chair and all that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want. Welcome, Nergo Matt. Welcome to the chat.
Hey.
Nergo Matt was in the chat earlier. Look at that. Okay, so next highlight done. Dare I ask if we're now going to flip the ratio?
Exactly that, yeah. So we now move into much more Cadian flesh tone. So secondary highlight to the first highlight.
There we
go.
And
again, we just move further up. So places on the bottom of the face that you might still highlight. The nose gets highlighted almost all the way to the end, actually.
Okay.
But tops of the cheekbones, still a little of that vertical line that your guys got, but don't do all the way. Just do the top, say, 30%. And you could still do the John Travolta chin balls kind of deal, but otherwise, everything from like cheekbones upwards gets highlighted, very little below that.
Okay. Let's rock with it. All right. This is, I don't want to, if I say that it's easy,
I know yeah, exactly.
It means I'm going to mess it up, but this has been refreshingly doable. Refreshingly doable.
You'd think.
Yeah, it's refreshingly doable.
I think, honestly, most things in miniature painting just literally come down to knowing one extra thing. And finding the source of that knowledge is the hard part. Because sometimes the source of that knowledge is just hundreds of hours of trial and error.
Yep.
Right? And that's how my painting was. I spent 20 years figuring it out, which is why I stream, because I don't think anyone should have to go through that. And we have such a wonderful community of painters that can stand on the shoulders of those that went before and really, really get good much quicker, and they'll have a much more fulfilling time in the hobby. And this is my main reason why I hate dry brushing. It's not because dry brushing is bad, because dry brushing can be useful at times. It's just not my preferred way of doing things. But because most people, when they're starting to learn to paint, they get this kind of fear of failure thing going on. Like, I don't want to try this because it will go wrong. But dry brushing, they know they can do dry brushing because it's easy, and they can create something that looks just about passable, and there's almost no chance of them messing that up. But it means that you don't stop dry brushing quite often. You stay in that, like, here's my level, this is where I'm at, and I'm not doing anything else because I can get things right this way.
See, it hurts because I know that's exactly where I'm at. Because I know that's exactly where I'm at right now. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm as far as dry brushing goes, maybe it's because the good painters don't do it. I'm a pretty good dry brusher, and I know it. But I do use dry brushes on everything because I know it. Because I don't know how to do the other stuff. yet.
I know people that basically dry brush for a living. They might be commission painters, and you've got like Byron through Artis Opus Siege that basically spends his life hawking the dry brushes for people that want to dry brush and have a better effect than just taking some horrible old brush they've had in their pot for however long. And even those guys that dry brush, say 70 hours a week's worth of dry brushing, and do it on a really, really good scale, even they'll admit that the technique works and it makes things, I'll say straightforward, because easy is not the right word to use necessarily.
Yep.
But that you can get better looking finishes by spending several hours more.
Yep, for sure.
But can you get a finish that quick without using things like an airbrush and other fancy tools like maybe even oil paints and so on? Perhaps not. And that's where dry brushing really has like hit its stride. It's like, you can do this, you can do it well, you can do it to a level that's passable, and you can do it in a fairly forgiving manner. So there's not really much opportunity to mess it up. But that's why I specifically dislike dry brushing, because you're an ideal like model for this. You dry brush everything, use contrast paint for your skin. You probably would not have tried painting a face without watching a bunch of tutorials, or without something like this happening, where we could sit and sort of talk you through it and guide you through it. And now you've tried it. Yep. You've realized it's not actually hard.
Yeah, no, this makes me want to add one unit of like flesh tone to my guard army.
Yeah.
Just one. Like I'm not ripping off the gas masks. I'm not taking off the gloves.
I don't blame you. Like, gas mask forever, bro.
Yeah,
like,
gas mask 100%. Forever. But I actually have one unit of rattlings that I've been thinking about putting in the list, and I bought the rattlings and I built them, and they're just like sitting primed on my desk as like kind of while I'm like waffling on whether or not they're actually going to be in the list or not.
Got you.
But it's making me kind of want to put them in. I was like, yeah, there's a lot of flesh tone in there. I could paint these rattlings. I could.
And they've got that kind of warm, ruddy, dwarf-like
exactly
flesh tone as well. So you could lean in a little bit more for the stubble.
It's not quite as tall of an order as I thought.
Add the reds. It's not quite as tall of an order. Very good. Very good. Short stint in painting that.
Yeah, short and to the point.
Very accurate with those words.
I know. Well, I'm really taking the puns to new heights.
Some would say new lows, to be fair.
All right.
Oh, the speed is what's the impressive part of it. Okay, next up, we're going to add our first of probably just 2 highlights using the brighter, like off-white. So this is Sickly Skin. GW don't really have an equivalent of this. Like the Pallid Witch Flesh is close, but not really. Yeah. The difference is that this isn't chalky as fuck. Whatever version of that you're using, add a very small amount of it, because suddenly we're going to go from 2 tones that aren't necessarily worlds apart from each other, like these, to that, which is clearly miles and miles away.
Yep.
So just add a little. Make sure it's a noticeable difference in color. So just mix, like whenever I'm doing a progressive mix, I always try and leave plenty of the last color while I'm mixing this color. And so I want to go to about a little more pink than that. About there. So you can see it's quite different from our Bugman's Glow. Just a little different from Arcadian Flesh Tone. And as always, keep it nice and thin. Here is where we get all the separation on the upper portions of the face. So now you're definitely looking to leave in those sort of harder lines around the eyes, this bit by the top of the nose. Yeah. You might put a slight highlight on the top of the cheekbone, but it would be a small, like, specular highlight rather than painting the entirety of his cheek and so on.
Can I actually see that palette again real quick?
Yeah, for sure, bro. Here you go. So this is where we're at, just here.
Gotcha, okay. Just making sure, because again, I'm mixing different paints than Jay is.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to take a quick look and make sure that I had guessed this right, but that looks pretty close to what I'm working with.
Excellent.
Definitely close enough that I'm not going to modify it anymore. I used some Brain Matter Beige from Army Painter to kind of mix into this.
Okay. So I'm going to paint the nose, because it's a very angular surface. Light tends to glint quite a lot off it.
Yeah, it tends to catch it.
Especially if you're an Australian cricketer.
Okay.
And then we're going to do eyebrows and definitely leave in all of those dark areas. What I'm not going to worry too much about doing, though I will still do it, is paint a bit of a highlight around the scar. Now the next step we're going to do is basically going to be going back to our blue, our yellow, and our red. And we're going to use those to boost those colours in the areas of the skin that need it, and also add in extra detail, like where the scar is on my mini. We've got the potential there to just add in a nice, like, darker bit of red, so we can maybe even just take some red and black or red and brown, dull that down a little bit. And this is going to help introduce the highlight we put on next to it to make it look like a kind of an angry, healed, but still like this guy's marked for life kind of scar.
Yeah, you know, it should look like it definitely needs to leave a mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
So ears, like I said, little highlight just at the very point of the cheek where you imagine the light could actually catch it around the eye and so on. And then my Marine has got these little like wrinkle lines on the sculpt, but even if yours doesn't, a couple of horizontal brush strokes down the middle of the forehead here can help simulate that.
Gotcha, I can do that. Yeah, he's kind of got the furrowed brow and like the V kind of above his eyebrows.
Got ya.
So I think I'm going to try to match that.
Right, mine's got two different studs in his head. One is just above the eye, which I've just put a little dot of bright paint on there to make it easy to see.
Yep.
That one we're going to paint silver.
Okay.
And there's another one back here, which I think we'll also paint silver. Just in case, I'm going to highlight that up with just flesh tone instead.
Okay.
Because that's quite a large one. It might look a bit weird if we have this big silver lump on the side of his head.
That's how you know he's a veteran or something.
Well, that's what this one is above the eye. This is just service stud.
I've never really understood service studs. I feel like service tattoos make a lot of sense. He's just showing how hardcore this guy is.
Thing, but if you, I mean, there's enough
maybe tattoos just fade after 200 years and none of us noticed. I mean, honestly, like
tattooing is the least permanent form of artwork that you could possibly have, because 6 months after you're dead, it's gone. So
yeah, I mean, like genuinely, I'm like thinking like, why wouldn't he just use a dang tattoo? And I was like, oh well, maybe we're just operating on different time scales. And I've seen faded tattoos.
I know what it is. After Marines go through all their gene therapy and stuff to become a Marine,
they just heal too fast.
That's a lot of like pain and suffering and hard work and everything else. Maybe at that point they're just like, listen, bro, I don't do needles anymore.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't blame them. Right after the like the 1,000th time of they give you steroids to every possible muscle you didn't know you had, they're just like, I'm done. Like hammer a nail into my skull, no problem, no needles.
Yeah, exactly.
It's relatable,
I'm
really.
tough. I can take it. I'm a Marine. I'm nails. Give me nails.
Yeah, give me nails.
Kalaris, have fun, dude. Enjoy the games.
Right. Take care, Class.
All right, so there we go. That's most of the flesh tone done, and you could stop here. There's literally nothing wrong with.
Yeah,
with
I mean that looks great.
I've seen faces less well painted than this in White Dwarf and so on, you know. But we can definitely go a little bit further, increase the variation of color we've got on our mini. We can start playing around with different glazes and so on to create more of an individual look. And this is really important to know how to do.
Okay.
Because in a box of intercessors, you get 10 heads.
Yeah.
Cool. And if you decide your entire army should be bareheaded because you like painting faces, you're pretty quickly going to have 10 identical twins, and then another 10 identical twins, and so on. It's going to become a little bit awkward. So being able to vary things a little bit really helps to break up what you've got in your army. By the time you add different color tones for the skin, different amounts of stubble, scarring, and so on. Everything changes. Nothing looks the same at first glance, even though the sculpt is still exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go back to our colors from earlier on. And I've got some of this blue, purple, red, and our yellow sepia tone.
Okay.
All of these now need to be turned into glazes. So glaze is just thin paint. I just use water. You can use mediums and stuff if you want, but honestly, water is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I take a little of that paint there, and then quite a lot of water. Now, there is a point where you can add too much water to paint, and you essentially break the paint a little bit. You have got a solution where the pigment is being lifted up by the water. It's sat on the surface. You don't want that. You still need something that's a homogeneous mix. And this is kind of what you're looking for. If you look and see how it behaves on the palette, it very easily and swiftly coalesces back together, a bit like the T-1000 in Terminator 2. If any of you haven't seen that movie, I'm greatly disappointed in you.
Okay.
Also, when glazing, don't overload your brush. So you saw we can wring out the paint from the brush. There's not a lot of paint that I'm picking up on the bristles there. The more paint you have on the brush, the more likely you are to overload the mini. You start then flooding the surface. Most of you, I imagine, have probably put a wash on something, and then you've seen, after it's dried, it's like line around the outside. It's a coffee stain. That's what we call it, coffee staining. That's usually caused by adding too much paint to one area. So with this, for the chin and creating the stubble, we're going to work into the recesses predominantly in the face, because it would be darker there anyway. I'm going to paint downwards with our brush strokes, not upwards, because we want the darkest point to be around the jawline, where there'll be a greater concentration of facial hair and so on. You can do this to glaze into a neckline. If you think about like the side of your neck, you frequently have, like, not tattoo, but like veins there that are reasonably prominent and easy to see. I guess arteries actually rather than veins, but you know.
Could do it around the mohawk as well, depending on how recently he cut it.
Yes, definitely you could. In fact, you know what? Let's do that too. Let's give him some stubble on the hair. So for that one, start your brush strokes sort of in and work towards the back of the helmet.
Yep.
And try and imagine where the hairline is. You're basically free-handing his hair on at this stage, so figure it out. This means we're going to have a scar that's going to interrupt his hairline as well. It's going to look super badass. Now with glazes, you should be using paint that's so thin that the first pass doesn't necessarily have a lot of impact, but by the time you get to the fourth or fifth pass, it's really starting to make a difference. And you might need to go 15 or so before you get fully opaque on a mini. This is fine. This is kind of what we want. That subtle change of colours and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you want to avoid here, by the way, is, this is quite obvious. I didn't say it, but maybe I should say it just in case. You don't want to cover up everything we've done.
Yep.
Right? You need to have all the variation that we've put into the model, using the skin tones, using the highlights. We're just accentuating some of that and making it a little bit more than it was.
Sounds good.
Something else you can do with stubble as well, by the way, is take some paint that's a little thicker and just very, very gently stipple some of it on. I always feel it looks a little bit too much like someone with like moles or beauty spots or whatever you want to call it. But that's something else you can do with faces. Is we'll call them the optional extras rather than anything else.
Yeah. How many hairstylists do you think are on the battle barge? Just like out of curiosity here. Like, how fresh is this guy's haircut?
I'm thinking, like, because of that big scar on his head, he's maybe had to go with a chainsaw. So I reckon this guy a little too fresh.
Yeah, that's actually what the battle scar is. Is one of the hairstylists on board the barge is about to be promoted to servitor.
That's right, yeah. You, sir, are on permanent latrine duty. Servitors will be not cleaned, maintained, and kept fully working, so you can keep on picking up my...
Okay.
You know, they actually have a thing. That's a literal thing in the Imperium.
Oh, the latrine servitors?
So there was you know how the Tau have the memory engrams and stuff.
Yeah.
There was a tech priest of some rank that was reasonably like high up, not like some scumbag class, but like someone that actually knew what they were doing and so on, that caused some great offense. And so they imprinted their memory onto an engram, and they put them in servitors, and they give these servitors the absolute worst jobs, and the Mechanicus maintain them for free, basically. They ensure they're in working order, not necessarily perfect working order, just so that this person whose memory engram is in there can still experience, even after death, all of this horrible stuff that they're put through.
All right, well, don't mess around with the Imperium. If you ever get worried, maybe they've made the Imperium too nice. Maybe I'm playing the good guys now.
Exactly. I mean,
there's
only
worry
so
about
many
that.
dick stuck in toaster jokes you can make about the AdMech before next thing you know, there are 1,000 versions of you scraping things off of walls that you don't want to know about.
Yeah. Okay, so I've kind of finished the blue.
Excellent.
To get that, and that is, I really like the stubble look here.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a light little thing that you barely notice, but you do still notice it.
Yeah, but you do notice it. I honestly, I've tried this before, and
Right.
I have done horribly at it. But I like the stubble look a lot, especially around the mohawks.
So maybe paint was too thick before?
No, I wasn't using blue.
Oh, okay. You're using black.
I was using I think I was using black, which was the same color as the hair.
Yeah.
Because I was like,
You-
oh well,
you
it's
need
stubble.
something
The stubble's
lighter
the same
than-
color as the hair, and it wasn't. It was wrong.
That makes a big difference. Right, next up, we'll do some yellow. So I'm going to take a little of the Seraphim Sepia, and we're going to turn that into a glaze. It's already a wash. We just need to thin it a little bit more. So you need to add less water to it than with normal paint, but you still need to add some water to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for helping to make the forehead look a little warmer. Okay. So where the natural light this guy is in would make things warm and bright and so on. That's what we're trying to do here. So again, just a small amount of it on your brush, nice and thin, and then basically follow the same lines we're just doing with the stubble, so working from the front towards the back. And you probably want 3 or 4 passes of this, if that.
Yep.
We don't want this to pull in the recesses. We don't want to make those recesses any darker. We're still trying to keep that same small contrast difference. And while that's drying, why not paint his hair as well? So I've got a little bit of black off to one side. I'm going to use that. I use some of the Gravedigger denim to help highlight it. So he's got this kind of steely blue-black hair, perhaps.
Okay.
And also take this opportunity, if you've got some black nearby, to touch up things like the soft bits of the armor. You see just down here, I've got some of the skin tone on there.
Yep.
Tidy some of those bits up, and it makes everything look even better than it already does.
Perfect.
And basically do a little of this, and then do another glaze, and sort of bounce back and forth, and you can stay busy and keep things working.
Yep, just adding a black to his head, to the hair, I should say. Okay.
You could do it to his head. I've done tattoos on Marines before now. Mm-hmm. It looks very cool. It's quite difficult doing an Aquila on the side of somebody's head, but
yeah, I feel like I should. That would be like my sister's army is done. How do I make it a little bit better? That's when I'm going to come back and learn how to do those kind of tattoos. But I would like to sometime. Okay.
And again, with those tattoos, as soon as you've put it on, just take whatever the top coat of your skin tone was and glaze that over it a few times, and it will fade it into being more of a less fresh, almost like stuck on look, and make it look much more like a tattoo.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Perfect. Okay, I like it.
quick glaze of that. Back to the sepia. Second pass of that. And then I'm going to do the scar on my dude's head, which you don't have a scar that's been sculpted on yours.
I do not.
But there's nothing stopping you just drawing one on.
Okay.
So I'm going to take some of the red that I have and a little tiny bit of the black. So I'm doing like a 4-to-1 mix of red and black. It's going to give me a really dark, almost reddish brown.
4-to-1 mix of red and black. Got it?
Yeah. This is honestly one of the best ways to start painting red. Just mix red and black together. As long as you've got good red, like a good scarlet. So I use Kato Red Base. Evil Sun Scarlet is a GW mostly equivalent of this.
Yep. Got some right here.
Don't know what the army painter would be, but I imagine they also have quite a powerful, like, solid red. But just mix that with black in like a 4-to-1 ratio, and then blend that up to red, and job done. Okay. You have a good red.
All right, so let's give this man a small scar. I'm going to paint this
into the recess. For you, think about where on the dude's head he could have a scar. It could be across his eye, in which case you could make the pupil kind of milky. So if you, here's a solid tip actually, if you ever painted eyes and really up a bit, then
I wish I'd said it. I had that thought because I actually just kind of quietly redid one of my eyes because I looked at it and it was just not, one of the two was just not what I wanted it to be. And I looked at that and I'm like, honestly, like I could just paint this guy with a scar and just have him be messed up. But I was like, no. I'm gonna try to learn this, and I just redid the eye, and it looked better on the second pass.
Good. Yeah, a lot of people just use bright red for this, and you can imagine if that was bright scarlet, it would just look really wrong.
Yep. Yeah, I can believe that.
So once you've painted the scar and paint it wherever you like, however you like, then take. Actually, no. The next step is to just highlight the rest of the flesh. That one final highlight. You know how when we were doing the shoulder pads, the non-metallic metal, we did all those glazes, the orange, to just get it to the right color, and the final highlight to just bring it all together. The same thing on the flesh. You see a lot of that kind of thing in the way I paint. That back and forward to just balance things perfectly.
Okay.
So add a little more sickly skin to your or whatever your bright color is. You said brain matter beige.
That's exactly what I'm using.
Yeah. Cool.
So just a little bit more to the mix.
A little more of that. Away you go.
All right, love it.
So for these highlights, it's the really final things. So just the end of the nose, the brow itself, some of the little bits on the forehead, like the wrinkle lines and so on.
Sounds good. Let's...
And then for my dude, I'm also going to put this along the length of that bit of scar tissue. I want this to be quite a bright line, as if it's still...
Do you put it like down the middle or down the side?
So I always highlight the underside of things.
Okay.
When you're doing battle damage or anything like that, where you're trying to create depth, you have the bright line on top and a dark line underneath. Scratch that. Dark line on top, the bright line underneath.
I was about to ask. I was like, really? I would have guessed.
It's upside down. Because it looks like you've got the effect of light hitting the edge on the thing that is underneath.
Yep.
And it helps create that extra sense of depth.
Okay.
A little off piece at the bottom there, so I'm going to bring the red back in to even that out. But that's an angry looking scar.
It is. That it is. Very nice angry looking scar. Okay. I'm just going to do some very light highlights.
You know, I think I've gone slightly too bright with that. So what to do? I'm going to go back a step with the highlights. This is where when you're making a progressive mix, you always try and keep the previous one, so you've got something there to fix any errors with.
Of course.
I'm just going to paint that over the top of it. And then, if I need to, I can take some of the Seraphim Sepia.
Yep, and always yellow it
glaze
back up a little
over
bit
the
if you
top
need to.
and dull it down a little, which I think I do need to do.
Mm-hmm.
We'll come in a little this side. I'm just slightly conscious of the fact that I've effectively painted on a red and, I won't say white stripe, but it kind of is.
It kind of is.
And this guy's trying to give himself a field promotion to fucking lieutenant. So.
He does. He just have it right down the head next time.
Yeah, it's like just right a center, please. Like, are you sure? Like, yep, totally sure. But are you really sure? So do a few passes out with the glaze. That'll even it right.
Man, I want to I think I don't want to touch this anymore. I'm actually, okay. I'm liking what this is looking like, and I no longer wish to touch this model.
That's an important thing in painting is knowing when you're done. Mm-hmm. And ask any artist; they'll always tell you that they're never done.
I know.
But there's a point where it's at least temporarily finished, right? And if you've reached that point, great. Happy days. Slap a base on it, call it done. Just gonna blend in a little of the stubble. I'm actually going to use this opportunity as well to highlight the hair a little. So I'm use some of that blue Gravedigger denim. Mix a little of the black in with it just to take it down a notch. And when highlighting hair, don't highlight individual hairs.
Yeah.
We've all seen the adverts of L'Oreal or whatever, where you've got someone flicking their hair about and all that, and you just get this bar of highlight rather than individual hairs highlighted. Mm-hmm. So highlight the areas rather than the strands of hair.
Gotcha. And for black here, you're doing a mix of black and a dark blue, a grayish
yeah,
blue.
Yeah, the blue gray that I used earlier on.
Perfect. Okay.
It's going to fit the stubble. It's going to work a subtle but still obvious highlight to it. And almost no one has ever got jet black hair.
Yeah, of course.
So, and then I should do a second highlight just around the sort of edge of the hawk to help bring that in.
Yes, this truly is the Mohawk miniature.
Do a bit more stubble to help glaze out that scar a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a completed face as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Good golly. That's about reminds out.
I still maintain it looks like the angriest version of Josh Roberts there ever is.
Yeah.
But, you know. I think it's the eyebrows. I think that's what does it.
He just accidentally painted his eyebrows.
The service studs and things.
Mm-hmm.
So here's one. In a similar way to how we've used the blue to create stubble,
yep,
you can use red to create inflamed or irritated skin.
Mm-hmm.
So take your red to a glaze, and then any of those things that you might have, just very gently stipple around it. And stippling is the right technique here because you can just make that little deposit of red exactly where you want it to be.
Yep.
And you want to keep this really thin, so don't do too many passes of it. You're just looking to influence that area ever so slightly, not paint it red. So let it dry. We can highlight the edges out a little bit with the flesh tones that we've got.
Mm-hmm.
That'll soften everything, but it'll still give it that slightly inflamed look. So for anyone painting things like Vashtor, Vashtor's a great place to use this technique.
Yeah.
He's got all the plugs in his arm, and where the armor and the flesh kind of meet. You can imagine that would be a horrible, painful, inflamed, raw area of skin. Get a bit of red in there, glaze it back out with the flesh tone to make it look kind of smooth and seamless.
Mm-hmm.
Happy days. It adds so much to the mini, and you can see here, just that little bit of red has made this area of his head look a lot more nasty.
Yep.
So he was just there.
Funny enough, I actually don't have any silver on my paint palette because I had to use grays and blacks and blues for silver.
That's okay. I thought you had the non-metallic metal, so crack on. No excuses.
Of course, let me just non-metallic metal the servo stud real quick.
Shall we?
Honestly, this is one of those areas where I'm just willing to do a silver.
No, I think honestly you could leave it with just the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Whichever you prefer. It makes very little difference because you've created a flesh tone and a head, a face on your mini that is reasonably a facsimile of real life.
Yeah.
Right. So even just doing what I've done here and putting a skin highlight on there, still works.
Yeah, skin highlight is what I ended up doing.
Does look like he's got spots.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. He's had to paint spots as well. Job done. Full service.
Woo! Woo! That's value right there.
But there you go, John. You have a fully painted Space Marine. Mine is missing things like the backpack being done and like the NMM being finished off on a few other bits and pieces. But I've really enjoyed painting this guy.
Yeah, this has been beautiful. Thank you so much for all the help with this. So this is, I'm gonna send you a picture of the face on this. First attempt at a face, I did not do as poorly as I feared because I'm very much like willing to do it bad in order to do it well later. Like I'm very at peace with that being a part of the process, but face does not look bad. If this guy was just going to be part of the army, I wouldn't feel the need to like go back and fix this.
Good.
It's just actually really good.
I really want to see it.
Yeah, I'll send you some pictures. So thank you so much. That's about wrapping us up for the day, and unfortunately that means that it's wrapping us up for the series.
End of series 1.
It is an end of series here. So Jay has been absolutely wonderful, helping me learn how to paint, teaching me a bunch of techniques, helping me get the best looking Space Marine in the Art of War house. Because trust me, if it's my best looking Space Marine, you don't need to check the other guys.
Just don't put it next to Rich's Botan that I painted for him.
I said Space Marine. I didn't say 32 millimeter base superhuman power armor. Jay, of course, painted a call for Mr. Richard Siegler's Votan army, and it is as beautiful as you'd expect it to be.
I loved it. Jim Raynor, StarCraft 2.
Best way to do it. So, so that wraps us up for the series. So, unfortunately, that means that there will not be another Hangout and Hobby next Monday. We're going to be rolling on through the 10th edition content as things speed up. But it's been absolutely wonderful having you here, Jay. It's been really, genuinely, insanely helpful. And I really appreciate it. So if you all enjoyed this and you want to see more Jay, maybe we'll see if we can ever get him back on here. But the main thing you should do is you shouldn't wait for that. You should go over to his channel. You should go over to Mohawk Miniatures on YouTube, go over there on Twitch, perhaps even both. I'm pretty sure that Twitch also has like and subscribe, but definitely like and subscribe to his YouTube channel.
Twitch definitely has subscribe.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of subscribe.
Oh, fair enough. All right. Well, click the right buttons on Twitch. Give him a follow.
Thing, and you'll be notified when we go live.
Mm-hmm.
I will be back to streaming 5 days a week now, rather than 6. And so you can catch me Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday over on Twitch. There we go.
Yes, you did join right at the end of the stream, but you can rewatch it very soon. So, Jay, thank you so much. You've been tremendous help. I'm looking forward to carrying these lessons forward, and I'll also be seeing you in what feels like a year, but is actually in like 3 months.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's sneaking up on us fast. So, all right. So that's gonna wrap us up here. Again, please go support Jay's channel as well. He is fantastic. He has some phenomenal content on there. Thank you so much for watching. Please, like, comment, subscribe here as well, and we'll see you next time. But next time is going to be a different kind of video. So, farewell for now.
Brilliant. Leave that one open-ended.
There you go.
Peace out, guys.
Bye-bye.